Good morning, everybody. I hope you got on with yesterday's maths okay. We enjoyed it in class. We really started to unpick why 1 became 0.1, 0.01, and then how that related to 1/10th, 100th, 1000th. We really used the place value chart, so if you didn't use it yesterday and you think it would be of a benefit, then make sure you you go back to it today. So for example, we started to have a look at this yesterday to help us with the talk task. Sorry, onto the screen. So we looked at that as our kind of the main bit in the middle of our lesson, and we were talking about how do we get from 1 to 1/10th, and we talked about how that was the same as dividing 1 by 10. And if we need to divide 1 by 10, we're moving it one place to the left in our place value chart, which is why it then becomes 0.1. So then we had that as our basis. 1 divided by 10 is the same as 0.1. And we talked about the value of this 1 now being a 10th, rather than up here, it being a 1 in the ones column. And then we carried that on, and then we looked at how 1 over 100, what does that mean and how does that relate? So how does 1 become 1 over 100? What happens to it? Well, we're dividing the 1 now by 100. This time the 1's being moved 2 places to the left, which is how we get the decimal 0.01. And we carried on doing that. We did that for thousandths, and then we thought, well, actually we don't always have 1 as our numerator, we could have 2. And what does 2/10ths look like? That wouldn't be 0.1 this time because we're dividing the 2 by 10, then it would be 0.2. Then we looked at numbers over 100 and said actually there might not always be 1 digit, so it might not always be a 1-digit number. You could have 24 over 100. The same principle still applies. I'm dividing that number by 100. I move each digit 2 places to the left. So if you didn't have a go and fully explore that yesterday, then do have a go today and explore that a little bit, maybe before you start the independent task. Okay, so start the lesson as normal. Do now. There are 7 arithmetic questions. Time yourself, give yourselves 4 minutes. Number 5 is a third multiplied by 8. Now don't worry too much over that multiplying fractions. That's something that we'll look at closely in year 6. The other questions though should all be okay. Particularly number 3, multiplying a number by 10. So that links really well with the decimal work we're doing at the moment. Number 4 is 7/8 take 1/4. You should notice with number 4 that the denominator 7/8 is different to 1/4. Think about what you know about 4 and 8 and how you can make that denominator the same, and that will help that subtraction. Okay, so 4 minutes to have a go at doing those. Moving on to the Let's Explore, so using something very similar to what I've just demonstrated at the beginning, which is looking at 2 sets of numbers and trying to work out what is the relationship between these numbers. Are they greater than or are they smaller than? And using the language 10, 100 or 1000. So for example, you've got 0.132 and 1.32. Are those numbers the same? Is one number greater than, smaller than? How much by? It is 100 times smaller than, or 10 times smaller than. So you need to write those sentences underneath to explain the relationship between each of them. Do a couple of sentences for set 1, a couple of sentences for set 2. And then as you go through the independent task, you're using the same strategies, but to begin with, you're filling in missing gaps. Looking at a decimal number, how do I make that smaller? How do I make that larger, and by what? So you've got 0.04 divided by something, and then your difference, your answer, is 0.004 at the end. So how do I get from that initial decimal to 0.004? I know that decimal is getting smaller, but by how much? Go back to your place value chart if you're unsure. Put 0.04 on your place value chart, so your starting decimal, And then have a look. I've got to make it smaller. So have a look. How many places to the left do I need to move each of these digits? So how many places to the left, this side of the decimal point, is that number going to, how many spaces do I need to move each of my digits? So 0.04. Now if I'm moving that to the left, I know that it's going to get smaller. The digits are going to keep going. I might move it once. That's going to get me 0.004. Is that enough? If it's not, maybe it needs to move one place to the left again. Okay, so you'll keep moving these digits until your decimal represents what that answer is. And then just to kind of give you a little bit of a challenge as you move on, you're having a little look at some problems using the same understanding of multiplying, times and dividing by 10 and 100. And we've introduced a bit of measures, so it's remembering how many meters are in a kilometre, how many millilitres are in a litre, and how many grams are in a kilogram. So thinking, is it 100 or is it 1000? And that will help you to convert between those measures. Okay, good luck guys.